This week's record-setting rain in Dane County caused immediate flooding in Middleton, Cross Plains, Black Earth, Mazomanie.
Now Madison's Isthmus is feeling the effects of all that water draining into the Yahara watershed, which includes Madison's lakes. This is no surprise to UW-Madison Emeritus Professor Ken Potter, who is an expert on flooding and stormwater management. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You look back at the big storm of 2008 up in Sauk County that eventually drained Lake Delton. 14 inches of rain over 3 days. What did you find there?
Well, what we did was to take that storm, take the data from that storm, and then we moved it to see what would have happened had it rained on the Yahara Lakes watershed. And what we found was that there would have been something worse than what we're seeing right now, much worse. So that storm would have caused catastrophic damage.
Why would it have been worse? Because it was over a longer period of time?
This storm isn't over yet,
right.
but it was a big storm, and it would have they would have had to make decisions about what to do with the dam and how much to release, and so a lot depends on the time of the year and so on. But it would have been very bad. It's pretty bad now. It's a different kind of storm, however, and one really interesting thing is that most storms in my 40 years here have come from Iowa, basically, from the west. This storm came up from the south. It was much smaller than most storms in size, but not necessarily in the amount of water, and it moved very, very slowly.
Sort of parked over the same spot.
That's unusual, and the fact that it stayed in the same place is unusual. And I'm no expert on climate change, though I've read a lot. I don't actively work in that, but there's a very good likelihood that this is a result of things going on in terms of temperature in the atmosphere.
So we're expecting more rain. How bad could this get? How can it change things?
Well, I don't want to forecast doom. I'm hoping that we'll be able to handle it. But, there are a lot of scenarios here. One important thing to keep in mind is that the lakes drain very, very slowly. From Monona to the outlet of Kaganza and even further down the Yahara River, there's a very, very slight slope there. And so it's very hard to get water out of the system. And so it could get very bad. And the fact that we've had to release water from Mendota into Monona is going to be a real problem there.
And the situation is happening because we're overdevelopment? Part of it?
It's a combination. And I think the important thing about development is that, as everybody knows, water runs off the roof and off the concrete, and that's great. We want that to happen, okay? But on a typical soil in Dane County that's in farmland, if we have 33 inches of rain in a year, only 3 inches are going to run off.
Wow.
Only 3. 1/10 of the amount of rainfall will run off. And now on a rooftop or concrete, 98% runs off. So.
And it runs off into the storm sewer,
right.
And that runs into the lakes.
Correct. Now, we haven't developed a very large percentage of the Mendota watershed yet, but we are having an impact, and that impact is visible. Lake levels have been rising, the amount of water going into the lakes has been increasing, but if we keep developing without controlling that runoff, it could get very, very bad. And if you couple that with climate change possibilities, then we're in real trouble. So it's not too late. I think we can start doing things, but I think we have to improve our stormwater ordinance.
And right now, it's not strong enough in your opinion?
Right now, stormwater management right now is hindered by the fact that just recently the legislature prohibited municipalities from getting full control of the volume of runoff. And municipalities, some had already been doing that, and they've been now prohibited. I chaired a committee that made the recommendation that the entire county get 100% control of that volume, and along with mechanisms to make it cost effective. And that the legislature, a couple lines in the legislation prohibited anybody from exceeding the DNR standard. And the irony is that the DNR standard is for water quality. It's not for water quantity. In fact, stormwater management for water quantity precedes the DNR's rules.
And this is a very unusual circumstance. This is a once-in-a-100-year storm, what we had this week. But you think it's going to continue to get worse?
Well, I think we will. The thing about 1-in-a-100-year storms is that they can happen in different places, different parts of the watershed, and so on and so forth. So Yes, it's certainly not going to get better. I think all the evidence from the climate scientists is that it's going to get worse simply because warmer temperatures can hold more water, but if the pattern of the storms is changing so that they're slower, then it's going to be even worse.
All right. Well, fingers crossed for the next few days at least.
Yes, I hope people come through this.
Yeah, we all do. Professor, thanks for being with us today. Great
pleasure.
information.